Hi everyone, so I wanted to share with you a couple of tips and tricks about hand sanding. First of all, this is my first ever voiceover video, so I'm not really comfortable. So as some of you may know, I am French and I know I make numerous mistakes when I speak English. So I apologize for my horrible accent and for my numerous mistakes. So we are starting with a test piece. This is just a mild steel. So I'm just grinding a false edge, a fake bevel, just so that it can, uh, act like if it was a knife. By the way, this is a 80 grit flap disc, I believe, so it's very rough. And so we will see in this video how to accelerate hand sanding and not making something that takes decades. So here you can see this is very rough, so we are gonna go straight to the belt sander and flatten everything. With the 80 grit belt, this one is a bit worn out, so it doesn't run very fast, but it does the job. Now we need to clean the piece and try at least to keep it flat. I don't really have a good technique for this. Sometimes I use this technique, you grind with the belt going perpendicularly to the blade itself, but I find it pretty hard to keep it straight and flat. So here is another technique that I use for bigger knives especially. You just go, you use the top wheel. Be careful, because if you put too much pressure on one spot, it can mess up the flatness, so don't use it for your tangs or for all parts that needs to be very flat. But to clean the flats of the knives or really long bevels, it works very nice. Also, it's pretty useful to clean the bevels of karambit or recurve blades. It works well, and it does the job pretty fast. Now we are jumping from the 80 grit, we are going straight to the 400 grit. It's a pretty big jump, but with that we are able to see clearly where are the scratches, and well, it works well. Don't put a lot of pressure, at this time you just want to clean everything up, so be careful with your angle. Just make the blade touch the belt where you want, and some light and long passes. And for a satin finish, we are done with the belt, so we are gonna jump straight to the hand sanding. Here's the 80 grit. You can see the 80 grit, it's very rough, and here it is 400 grit. Here you can see the clock, so that I can prove you that I didn't cheat. So this is real-time videos. It does take quite long, so I know it's boring, but I wanted to give you a proof that it is madeable within to hand sand in just a couple of minutes. So we are starting with 240 grit, which is already pretty high for hand sanding, but it works great after the 400 grit belt. And there you can see my dog, which is just standing here for me to play with, but she knows I won't play with her because I'm working. So anyway, by the way, this was the first time I tried the 400 grit belts, and I can tell you that it goes really fast to hand sand after them with some 240 grit sandpaper. Also be sure to use the right sandpaper. I used to use only sandpaper used intended to be used on paint, and it would take decades, and it was getting dull very fast. So I just bought some other sandpaper, and which is intended to be used on steel, and so it works super nice. So be sure to use the right product. And so the total time to hand sand, which is the longest time, because the first grid is always the longest. It took me 3 minutes and 38 seconds to do the entire 40 grids. Here are still a couple of scratches left, so we're just going back and forth, removing everything. If you find it a bit too long to watch me, because I know it's boring, you can just skip and go 1 minute ahead, and there will be some voiceover again. And so there we go, we are done with the 240 grids. So as you see, it didn't take a lot of time. Here is the clock, so that you can see that I didn't cheat it on anything. So it didn't take a lot of time. And here is the finish. It's a bit dirty, but you know, with some finer grids, it will be okay. For most knives, it will be great. You know, heavy duty knives, you don't need to put a very nice finish on them because they will get scratched anyway. So a light satin finish is okay. Here I'm just going a bit up in the grips with some 360 grids. It took me about 1 minute and 30 seconds. This is just to get a better finish. Usually on most of my knives, if I want a satin finish, I will just stop at this point, because 400 grit or 800 grit, I don't really see the difference after that. And there we go, we are done. So if I want a satin finish on a knife, this is all I will do. It took me just a couple of minutes. So you see, it's not too long. So now we are going to try making a great mirror finish. So we are starting with 240 grit belts. Actually, you don't really need this, but I wanted to try them because this is the first time I use them. And they were great, but they are not necessary. So we're gonna use them on the rough 80 grit side that we have cleaned earlier. Safety glasses always. And now it's the same, just cleaning. These belts were great. I wanted to be sure to remove all the 80 grit scratches, but actually you can also jump straight ahead to 400 grit because it works, as you've seen earlier. And then we are going to use 400 grit again. Once again, you want to clean everything to make sure you remove all the scratches from the previous grit. So take your time, don't put a lot of pressure because it's useless, just let the belt work and do its job, and everything will be fine. And now we are going to use the holy belt. Just kidding. It's a 1000 grit belt. I was pretty happy to find them on eBay for the right size. And so this is the last bait I will use for a mirror finish. And I was quite surprised that it isn't aggressive at all. I mean, it's not that if you couldn't expect this, because well, it's a very fine grit, but I wasn't prepared that it would be such light sanding. So once again, take your time, remove all your grits and the scratches. So here we are done with the belt, and we are going to hand sand now. This time we are starting with some 360 grits, because it will be enough to remove the 1000 grit scratches. Actually, the first passes were with some dull sandpaper, and it removed almost all the scratches. So it is enough. If you want to start higher, I think you could. But the next grid that I have is some 1000 grit, and I don't think it would be enough to remove these scratches pretty fast enough at least. So I'm starting with some 360 grit. It took me only 1 minute and 30 seconds to hand sand the whole thing with this grit. So here we are with the 360 grit. It's done. Would be a pretty good satin finish, but we want to go higher with some 1000 grit. So it took me 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't really know when to stop. I just cut a piece of 10 cm long and 2 cm wide, and I just go across the whole thing. And you can actually see the difference when you are Handsanding. So now we want to go to 2000 grit, and at this step, so here you can see the mirror finish which is starting to appear. At this step you could just stop and buff the piece of steel. It would make a pretty great mirror finish, but if you don't have a buffer, or if you want to be a bit more meticulous, you need to go a bit higher. So as you will see in a few seconds. So here we are. As I said, this is already an okay mirror finish, and it would be better with some buffing, but we want to go higher. So some 5000 grit sandpaper. Here you can see that it is really becoming mirror. And if you don't have a buffer, you could just not buff after this grit, or you can go higher, but a buffer buffing isn't necessary after that. So what do you think? Pretty great, no? We're gonna buff it anyway. So when you do that, when you buff a knife or anything, be sure to have a very strong grip on the piece of steel that you're buffing, because if the wheel catches it, you're gonna have a bad time if it throws the knife towards you. Again, even pressure, don't push like crazy, just let the compound and the wheel do its own job, and it will work fine. By doing that, you are putting also tiny little scratches perpendicular to the blade. So what I do is I run the blade parallel to the wheels, so I put the scratches all in the same direction. Now we just want to clean up it, and it's ready to go. By the way, this is nothing fancy, this is just some product to clean windows. So here we have it, a great mirror finish. Dusty, because my workshop is dusty, but it's a mirror finish, and done quickly. Here you can compare to the satin finish we've done earlier. So let's do a quick recap for the satin finish. It took us 5 minutes, about 5 minutes. Start with the 80 grit belt and the 400 grit belt, and then you can start hand sanding with 240 grit by hand and then 360 grit, or you can even go higher if you want it to be even cleaner. Just choose the right sandpaper and it will be okay. For the mirror finish, it took us a bit more time, almost 10 minutes, or just above 9 minutes. The progression is 80 grit and 240, which is optional, 400 grit and then 1000 grit, and then you can start and send from 360 grit, go to 1000, 2000 and 5000 or even higher. And then you can buff it, but it is also optional. And finally, I want to share a few tricks. So yes, if you have the access to some power tools with belts on it, you can just buy some high grit belts, because it will be always easier to hand sand after. Also use appropriate sandpaper. As I said earlier, I used to use sandpaper that wasn't intended to be used on steel, and it was hell. It would take decades. So use an appropriate sandpaper, which is intended to be used on steel, and it will work so much better. Use a sanding block also, or a stick or something to help you to push and to even out the pressure. You'll see it will work 100 times better if you use something to push rather than just your bare hands. Also, don't be lazy. As you've seen in the video, it only takes about 5 minutes, maybe 10 if you want a mirror finish. So just buy some high grit belts and some appropriate sandpaper, and you will find hand sanding a lot easier. And finally, yes, the finish has to suit the use of the knife. I mean, you won't do a mirror finish on some chopper or some bushcraft knife, because it's useless. It will get scratched anyway. To my mind, the better finish is an acid stone wash, because it is just some numerous scratches. So more scratches won't do anything to it. If you're doing some high carbon steel kitchen knives, then a mirror finish is your best ally against rust. So be sure to take time to hand sand. A satin finish is great for all kinds of knives. It doesn't take too long and it makes it sweet. Also, hand sanding is really a proof of the effort you've put into a knife. I mean, people who have already hand sanded something know it does take some time. So to me, it's a proof of the effort and the craftsmanship you put into a knife. Also keep in mind that here it is a piece of mild steel, and some steel are easier to polish than other. For example, stainless steel are easier to take a better polish, and also hardened steel will take a little bit more time to hand sand, but trust me, it's not so much longer, maybe a couple of minutes. It depends on the hardness of the steel. So I think I'm done I've said all I wanted to say. So hopefully you've learned something in this video. If you like it, well, if you've enjoyed the video, please like, share, comment, all that good stuff. I'll be happy to answer to every comment actually. And well, I think it's gonna be it. See you next time. Bye.